What's up? It's your boy Kevin to turn on this motherfucking YouTube shit. Wow, what the fuck?
What's up? It's your boy Can't Tell YouTube shit. Hey man, we are lit to man. Turn to my freak day. Shooting outside, big crip in the gang. Shooting outside shit, man. Free Palestine, free Congo, Russia, do your thing, and take this stand up, back up. Each day is a little bit better version of yourself. Never listen to breathe down, I'll start back. Never listen to tell you you are, but also never put yourself in a position of alone. Then stay humble. Your revolution on this moment. Keep y'all way first. Come to the Black Hebrew Israelite as a real Jew. We out here. Alright, boom. Today, to my freak day. Shooting outside, big crip in the gang. Shooting outside shit, man. Turn up, and the gang go. Bruh, we got some deep, impactful video today, man. Like, this video gonna really break down how, mental health, popularity, success, fame, and fortune, and just crazy situations can turn your life upside down in any type of way, because action does have consequences to certain people. You feel me? But you get what I'm saying? But we been talking about this shit, man. YNW Melly, man. This gonna really break down, like, from first coming up to how now, like, the dark psychology around YNW Melly and how it really got. Like, this is a really good video. If y'all watch it through, make sure y'all like and subscribe. Let me know. This is a good deep video. Let's get through it. Shout out to Jay Wisdom, the dark psychology of YNW Melly, man. We're going to figure out, the trauma and the backstory of YNW Melly, which we kind of know, but it's always new things to, like, you feel me?
So what you got tattooed on your face? Tell me about it a little bit.
I got a sack chase right here. That's my brother. That's my twin.
Okay.
I got Juvie.
Juvie?
Yeah, brother.
Just a lot of your friends who passed?
Yeah. Nah, them my niggas right there.
Oh, okay.
Insane.
2 names permanently inked on his face. 2 brothers he'd known for years. 2 people he said he'd ride for.
This shit here right here, family. You know what I'm saying? This shit ain't just was made overnight. Yeah, world. You feel me? We going straight to the top. That nigga word sack chasing. You know I love you. Shout out to Trudy.
On camera, they looked inseparable.
My bad. I wouldn't get none of my friends tattooed on my face until they died.
Yeah,
I'm not a good friend like you are, apparently.
2 months after this interview, both Sack Chaser and Juvie were pronounced dead.
Up-and-coming Florida rapper YNW Melly, also known as Jamel Demons, is now in jail, charged with murdering 2 men he called his friends.
Some people still can't believe Melly could be involved, but when I looked at the full picture, at his childhood, his posts, his interviews, I realized that this wasn't random. Melly was a ticking time bomb.
So now I'm thinking like, boom, shoot it in the head, and his head just cracked open, and his brain just like.
A kid who kept bringing knives to school.
I kept bringing knives to school and shit. I ran and pulled one out on my lunchroom. That's my neck. That's her neck.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. A teenager who posted about wanting to die, then became obsessed with guns and started fantasizing about killing. And when the pain got too much, someone else was created inside his head.
Melvin, I only let him out at nighttime. Like, when the night hits, he really come. And it's like, Melvin is just like, once you play with Melly to a certain extent, Melvin just don't like that. Melvin on your ass.
From court documents to Facebook posts to interrogation tapes, I've gone through the evidence to understand Jamel Demons before the murders. What kind of mind does it take to even be capable of this?
Up that bitch out of and bust his ass. That's his soul. Like, up this brother, your ass. He disappeared.
Let me ask you, when you finally got to Bang's house and you saw Melly, was he wearing the same clothes as he left the club in? What's your impression? What do you think happened?
Same thing y'all think.
Damn.
I am not no human murder. I was still trying to find out who had my shit till one day I found out they had my shit. And then the next day I just had to bust it. Every time I wake up in the morning, I got murder on my mind. I got dye in my head, pretty smile. I always kept that innocent look, you know what I'm saying? Because I didn't want Melly to
Pretty God, he get
real at
released,
that time,
man.
you know what I'm saying? But the whole time I'm in school, every day, I got my pistol in my lunchbox. Sometimes I bring 2 pistols. You think you're fine after a car accident?
Jamel Dimmons, another Jamie. What can I say about this kid? He was born May 1st, 1999.
May 1st?
Jamil was a little nugget, 6 pounds, 7 ounces.
Nigga, he about the same birthday as
Melly's
mine.
birth had been a pretty unique situation. His mother Jamie had gotten pregnant with him at age 14 and gave birth to him in the 9th grade. This was in Elyria, Ohio,
That's why his mom
and the
looks so
father was a
fine.
guy named Dante Taylor. However, quickly after falling pregnant, Jamie's mother decided to move them from Ohio to Florida.
Me and her ended up liking each other and whatnot.
That
And
means she
all
only like
was messing
38,
around, you know,
39.
for years. And then
Right now.
she got pregnant with our son, Melly, and she initially left. She was only like maybe, not even a month pregnant. And then her mother uprooted her to go live in Florida where their grandma lived at.
For whatever reason Jamie's mother decided to do this, we might not know. But after living with her mother for a bit, Jamie eventually got her own place in the low end of an area called Gifford.
I was terrified. It's like I was really responsible for myself, and I was like responsible for a whole person and trying not to, mess him up. Gifford, it can make you or break you. There's really nothing to do. So either you got to put your head on straight and focus on your education and find something you love, or you're going to end up in the streets. Those are your options.
After moving to that area,
Real talk.
Melly made one of his first friends, Christopher Thomas Jr., who'd later get the nickname Juvie.
My day one, right? His one day, met her right there. He was just like, my mama just moved to Orangewood today. I was like, shit, my mama just moved yesterday. Me and his bad ass, we just motherfucking like, we got the same brain, like, we got bored one day and we just set all them woods behind y'all on fire, like, and this shit was on fire. Fire truck came. My mama beat both our ass, like.
They may have been
Nigga, I lit
delinquents
a
set the woods on
bathroom on fire
but
before
they
by
prevented each other
accident.
from being lonely. Both in a new town
In
with no
apartments,
friends.
nigga lit the
They
whole
went to
bathroom
St.
on
Peter's
fire.
Academy at the time whilst in elementary
By
school
accident.
and built a friendship that would last a lifetime. Literally, since Juvie would be one of the victims Melly would allegedly end up murdering a decade later. But before we get that far ahead, the rest of Melly's childhood is going to be the key examination in uncovering his psychology. Because if you think him being caught up in a murder case is somewhat spontaneous for Melly, just because he was a global megastar when it happened, then let me tell you that my psychological report I've created for him would suggest anything but this case being a random act of violence. In fact, Melly's fascination with guns had started before his age had even reached double digits.
I found my first gun when I was 9 years old. Ever since then, like growing up, I was so addicted to the bitch. I love that bitch. I was only in 4th grade, but I took that bitch everywhere. To school, I took the bitch everywhere.
At just 9 years old, he'd started the habit of bringing a gun to school in his lunchbox. Not for protection, not because he'd planned to use it, but because they were just fascinating to him. A bit odd for sure, but a lot of young boys like action figures and first-person shooter video games, so it might have just been a boisterous trait taken too far. I don't think this fascination alone served as a basis for Melly's future actions, but the rest of his home life certainly did. At some point after settling down in Florida, Jamie had met a new man named Benny King Jr., and the two of them got married. They had a kid together in 2007 named Brandon, and all of a sudden, Melly had a growing family. On Benny's Facebook, he does a good job at making it seem like happy families, like a good father raising his 2 boys. However, behind the scenes, something sinister was going on. The date was June 25th, 2011. Here's Dante's account of what happened.
Well, stepdaddy comes home, ranting and raving around the house, where's my stuff at? My son is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I cleaned up the kitchen. So stepdaddy finds his stuff in the trash can. So, long story short, he put his hands on my son.
I can't describe the next part in detail due to YouTube's guidelines. The full uncensored breakdown of what allegedly happened to him that day is on my Patreon though, linked in the description. All I can say about what happened between Melly and Benny back in June 2011 is that the sheriff's office put out a warrant for Benny with the charge of child abuse. Both Melly and Benny weren't allowed to be in the house together, and you would assume that a mother in her right mind would kick Benny out. However, it was a 12-year-old Melly who was made to go and live with his grandmother.
They can't be in the house with each other, so one of y'all gotta go. So my son's mother, Jamie Dimmons, made the choice to send my son off to his grandmother's house. So when she sent him, you can imagine, okay, first of all, he was old enough to know you chose your husband that was in the wrong in the first place over me.
Yeah,
Mom chose her husband over me like he was dead wrong. He should have never put his hands on me.
He right though.
He right.
He right.
So after a traumatic event, Melly didn't get the support of his mother. Instead, it looked to be perhaps the start of a period of neglect from Jamie, one that messed up Melly for the rest of his adolescence. Complex PTSD, or CPTSD, is a mental health condition that can develop if you experience long-term trauma. It involves stress responses such as anxiety, having flashbacks or nightmares, avoiding situations, places, and other things related to the traumatic event, heightened emotional responses such as impulsivity or aggressiveness, and persistent difficulties in sustaining relationships. Examples of things that may cause CPTSD include long-term child physical or sexual abuse, long-term domestic violence, being a victim of human or sex trafficking, war, or frequent community violence. You might wonder, isn't this just regular PTSD?
No, it's
but the main
different.
discrepancy between the two is
PTSD,
that
when
PTSD
it only
is usually the
happened
result of a short-term trauma.
Yeah, when it only
event.
happened like
For
once.
example, getting shot.
Yeah, that's only like once.
CPTSD is to
Yeah.
do with a long-term trauma. For example,
Complex
getting
means
abused
it's
by your
over and
stepdad
over and
over
over
a
and
period
over
of
and
months
over.
or years. The symptoms people with CPTSD usually have over PTSD are emotional regulation issues, identity and sense of self issues, and relationship issues. And while I can't clinically diagnose him, the symptoms line up perfectly with his story. You might be thinking, why would Melly have CPTSD? The issue was a one-off, so wouldn't that be PTSD?
It kept on happening.
On the 30th of March 2015, Melly posted on Facebook saying, "Abusive stepfather, I'm wondering if he's stupid." This was about 4 years after the event. In 2014, Melly also posted, "Stepdads always think they know everything, shut the f*** up," and "I swear to God, I feel like I don't belong with my family, I'm always in trouble, I don't give a f*** anymore." This tells me that Melly and Benny didn't get along the best, and considering Melly was kicked out of the house, and the charges didn't seem to give Benny any long-term punishment, there's a high chance Melly now felt powerless. He felt like nobody, not the sheriff's office nor his own mother, was on his side. However, even if true, I don't think Benny alone would have caused the CPTSD for Melly. But when in combination of Jamie's neglect, it was both of them combined that put Melly through a traumatic time. Melly being vulnerable on Facebook allowed us to see how he really felt during this time. "My mama don't love me, what makes you think a bitch will? I stay smiling, but I be going through a lot of low-key. Y'all wouldn't understand me. I miss my soul. If only I was really smiling on the inside as much as I do on the outside. Popping every day to hide the pain. Own family turned on me. I just want my mama to be proud of me once before I ain't ever been good enough for my parents. You people don't understand me. I done been through so much bull that I cry every night thinking about what I've been through." Many kids go through a phase in adolescence where they feel a type of way towards their parents, but it's all about context. Knowing what happened with Benny, knowing he wasn't picked by Jamie, and the fact that these comments are a thirst for love rather than typical anger towards a parent, it would be my opinion that Melly is going through a time that is traumatic and would surely be a catalyst for CPTSD to form. In the short term, I believe these events made Melly go through a period of depression. Children often have mood swings. They may feel sad or irritable for a period of time, like after getting a bad grade or falling out with friends, but after a while, they tend to get better again. Depression is different. If a child has depression, their sadness hangs on for more than 2 weeks. They may also have irritability or hopelessness that lingers. It may affect a child's sleep, appetite, or relationships with others. Depression can also prevent a child from enjoying school, sports, or hobbies that they once enjoyed. In severe cases, depression can lead to thoughts of taking one's life. There are a few different types, but I believe Melly was suffering with major depressive disorder. Some people call this clinical depression. And there are a few signs and symptoms of this type, but the main one that's clear with Melly is the mood changes. A child might seem sadder or more irritable than usual, and they feel this way most of the time. Melly had multiple posts where he expresses sadness, anger, and even thoughts of taking his own life. But as a young teenager, here's what Melly was posting. If I died right now, y'all would miss me for 2 weeks, then forget about me. I wanna die young. I've been ready to. I already know I'm going to hell. Why would I be afraid of a gun? Stop making threats because I swear once you can't come back, and I'm alright with that. Thoughts on repeat tonight. There ain't no point in no more. None of these sound like statements from someone who isn't experiencing extreme sadness. Melly's home life made him feel hopeless. He even admitted that 4 times he actually did attempt to, and he had the Baker Act implemented as an attempt to help him.
I've been there before. I used to want to. I really used to. I got Baker Act. This is shit y'all don't know about Melly. Like, you know what I'm saying? I got Baker Act like 4 times. Like, trying to.
The Baker Act is the informal name for the Florida Mental Health Act of 1971, a state law that allows for involuntary emergency mental health assessments and temporary hospital holds. It enables qualified professionals to place an individual in a 72-hour psychiatric hold if they are believed to be suffering from a mental illness and pose a substantial risk of harm to themselves or others, or are unable to care for themselves without treatment. Melly apparently didn't just threaten to harm himself during these periods, but he'd bring knives into school and threaten other kids too.
Crazy shit.
I kept bringing knives to school and shit. I trying to pull one out on one of the motherfuckers in the lunchroom.
So you pulled a knife out on someone at school?
Yeah, then I did some terrorist type shit. They was like, what the fuck?
You said terrorist?
Yeah, I know. I was crazy. I was crazy. I was about to...
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I believe Melly develops major depressive disorder as a result of feeling unloved. If your own parent won't love you, your dad's replacement abuses you, and you feel lonely, it's a mountain to climb every day to find joy, and he was unsure of how to express that as he had no one to listen to him. That's why his friends were so crucial, and why he loved them so much. Around middle school, he met more friends, and his circle grew bigger, but the notable ones that are key to the story were Anthony Williams, who went by Sack Chaser, and Cortland Henry, who went by Portland. Alongside Juvie, who was still by Melly's side, they would form a group called Y&W, which stood for
That world, you see me? We going straight to the top. That world, Sack Chaser, you know I love you. Shout out to Truth.
That's the thing, man. When you grow up,
this new
man,
family
when you
gave
grow
Melly
up,
a new sense of
your
belonging
friends keep
and
the
allowed
same
him to stray
personality.
further from the depressive state
You know what
and
I'm
make him
saying?
forget about the situation at home. But his
You might be a
situation
whole
at school
different person.
was far from perfect.
They still think they can fuck you over and shit. You know what I'm saying?
Parents, if your child plays Roblox,
Our school seemed like an interesting period for Melly. It was definitely a struggle where he was both trying to fight demons but also make something of himself. He never took a liking to education as far as I could tell, and a big factor that could have been contributing to this is Melly's ADHD. November 2014, I might be on my ADHD medication all week, so don't say to me, I might be on demon. They got me on 4 different medications to keep me and my mind right. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It's a condition that affects how your brain works. Despite its name,
That
ADHD
medicine,
doesn't
man,
mean that you lack
that can fuck
attention.
you up even
It
more.
means that it's harder for you to control your attention or direct
You
it to
don't really want
certain
your kid to have
tasks.
ADHD
This is something
because
Melly
they can
actually
use that for
claims he's been
something.
diagnosed
You
with.
put that nigga on
He said he's
medicine,
had to take medication
become a
for it,
zombie, bitch.
saying he was given
They
Ritalin
fuck
and
up your whole
Adderall as
mind, bitch.
medication
You don't know
from
what the
his
fuck
young
going on with that
7th grade.
medicine they give
Well,
you.
you're not diagnosed with bipolar or anything like that.
Yeah, I am.
So you are bipolar.
And ADHD.
Damn.
So when you were coming up, did they like put you on Ritalin and shit?
Hell yeah. When
That
I got
medicine
my
fucked them up,
So
man.
so you was on like Addies and shit?
I'm telling niggas right now,
So you were a kid doing that
don't
shit?
ever put your
What
kids
age
on the
did you start
medicine they
on
give
Adderall?
you, bruh.
7th grade.
Because they will
Damn,
fuck
you
your
started
ass
on
up
in
with that
7th grade.
medicine.
Yeah,
Especially if
The
they
reason
say
Melly
you got
said, don't
ADHD
take
or
it
something
to me,
wrong with
I
you,
might be on my demon.
don't
Might be
fall
because
for it,
both
bruh.
Ritalin and
It'll
Adderall
fuck
can,
you up,
in
nigga.
some people, cause side effects like irritability, short temper, and mood swings.
Yep.
And this would be on top of
That
what I
medicine
already
fuck
believe
your
he was
ass
going
up,
through
nigga.
emotionally.
Trip.
Symptoms consistent
Plus
with
the drugs?
CPTSD
Nah,
and
bro.
depression. You can only try to understand his mind trying to keep it together unless you've been through something similar yourself. ADHD has a strong genetic basis, so it's not something that's simply caused by one bad event in childhood. In Melly's case, it's more likely he was predisposed to it and then had to manage it on top of everything else going on at home, but it helps to know what he was going through. People with ADHD experience two types of symptoms. Inattention symptoms. These symptoms affect your ability to focus on tasks and complete it from start to finish. You might put off tasks that require focusing. You might also seem distracted when someone's talking to you and lose things a lot. Hyperactivity, impulsivity symptoms. These symptoms affect your ability to sit still or feel comfortable staying in one place. One of the major issues that arises with ADHD is everyone misunderstanding you, especially when it comes to the school system. If the ADHD is poorly managed
But
or
why
the
the
teachers are
fuck do you
unaware,
want a
the
nigga to
kid
be
just
all
gets labeled
fucking
as a bad kid who doesn't pay
drained
attention
and
and focus on
drowsy?
tasks.
ADHD make you
This
move
can turn
around a
into a
lot.
self-fulfilling prophecy as the bad kid, resulting in them caring less about school and finding other things to do.
ADHD
So
mean
between having a
you
turbulent home
not
life and
with the
having a disorder
system.
that puts him on medication,
If you got
Melly's
ADHD,
self-esteem was probably much lower
schizophrenia,
than his
all that
peers.
stuff, they say
However,
it's
when you
because
look
you're
at his
not
social
with
media
a
during
fucking
high school,
system.
aside from the posts already
I'm a
shown,
fucking
he seems
robot
to be the
zombie. You
charismatic and
different.
confident one, making up
And they don't
trends,
like different, so they
flirting
try
in
to
the
say
game with a lot
you're
of
fucked up
girls,
in the head
and
when
being
you're really
very
not.
active
You're
on
just thinking
social media
outside the
in general.
box.
I believe this may have been a defense mechanism, almost creating a new
And then
persona to forget
you
what was
take
going
that
on at
medicine,
home.
it fuck you up
And
even
that's why
more.
sometimes the two worlds would intertwine when he would post suicidal posts on his social media, then the next day be all charismatic again. The charisma wasn't fake, but it was a way for him to stop feeling powerless. Even musically, in future interviews he claimed, "I always knew I was going to be a star, and that's all I wanted to be," which I believe was because he needed to be something big and popular to override the feelings of worthlessness and shame. His first attempt at music, at least from what I could dig up, was his LOL freestyle he dropped on SoundCloud in July 2013 at 14 years old.
Freestyling, know that I'm freestyling. Yo, girl in my crib, and you know she free balling. Niggas be tripping, but never be body. You keep talking all this shit, and I'm happy watching
A
Prodigy.
year later, Melly would get behind the mic alongside a different set of friends, a group they'd formed called Ghost Bros.
Perks, zero.
Trust me, say that you different, not even words.
Melly had his songs posted to YouTube, and he even attempted live performances in their local areas. However, it didn't go anywhere. This attempt at music was all in the midst of his depressive posts, showing he was trying to balance two worlds. Even though it wasn't quite working, the music ambition didn't die, but Melly wanted money, and he'd come up with quite a sinister way to make it.
So my job was stealing everybody's iPhone around school and jailbreaking them, and then I said them.
His first method was robbing phones off other kids and jailbreaking them, and then selling them. Jailbreaking back in 2014-2015 would have made the phones way more desirable, as it allowed for the phones to have special features like getting paid games for free, having custom fonts, screenshotting on Snapchat without the other person knowing, and many more things that would have been cool to other teenagers or young adults at that time. Not only did Melly just sell the phones, but he advertised his jailbreaking, bypass, and underground activation skills on Facebook. So he did technically have the skill set to sell the phones clean.
I don't know how to do it.
Knowledge of this makes his second method
phone,
even
I know how
more
to
evil.
jailbreak.
I get a lot, you know the iCloud lock? I steal the phone, iCloud lock it, sell it to your ass lock, and then you gotta give me the phone back, because you're gonna think I'm gonna unlock it for you, then I'm gonna drive off. Keep doing it. I mean like $1,800 a week off this shit.
Based on his wording, it sounds like what he was doing was roughly this. Step 1, Melly robbed someone at his school for their iPhone. Step 2, he advertises and sells the phone that is already iCloud locked. The buyer hands over the cash. Step 3, the buyer realizes it's still locked and can't be used. Step 4, Melly says, "Give it back, I'll unlock it for you." Step 5, the buyer hands it over, believing Melly will fix it. Step 6, Melly drives or runs off with both the phone and the money. So on top of stealing phones themselves, Melly was also conning people and robbing them of their money. It's a heinous scam, and with all these hustles combined together, it's plausible he was making $1,800 a week on good weeks, at just 15 or 16 years old. Melly did flex his money online, but I don't think the money was the main attraction for him, because he still carried his gun around these times. And one day, at just 16 years old, Melly decided to use it.
Yeah, I had went to jail for the school shooting thing I did.
School shooting thing?
Yeah, I was shooting by the school. I had my gun, you know what I'm saying? I had brought it to school one day, then he told that I had that bitch at school, and then he followed. I guess he had his homeboys follow me, because I was still trying to find out who the had my shit till one day I found out they had my shit. And the next day I just went, I had to bust at them boys for that.
Melly attended Vero Beach High School, and just like he'd been doing since elementary, he carried his gun in his bag there too. According to Melly, for whatever reason, on the 19th of October 2015, some boys had taken Melly's gun from his bag when he was unaware.
Damn.
Melly felt humiliated in this moment. The boys were older, aged between 17 and 20. Melly had already supposedly had to endure abuse from an older male at home, and it had been eating him up inside. So he now wasn't going to allow himself to be punked by some older boys and let them feel like they had power over him. Melly would take to Facebook that night and express that something was coming. So that once you put your hands on that swivel, ain't no turning back. That beast in me, dog, it's too late. The following day, around 2:26 p.m., just outside of his high school, Melly fired a shot at 3 boys and missed. The shooting instantly made noise in the neighborhood, and Melly would post a link to an article titled "Shots Fired Place Vero Beach High School on Lockdown." Melly would caption the post with a simple, "Oh." The boys would end up snitching on Melly, and he was arrested the same day. Detectives tried to get the truth, but they didn't get much reasoning. Instead, they got a preview of how Melly was going to handle himself in jail.
Melly is crazy, nigga. Ugly ass.
However, despite knowing there was a camera in there, Melly still couldn't help suppress his affection for guns and started mimicking firing off shots whilst in there. Although not in the first interrogation I was able to watch, Melly did eventually give up the gun's location, and a semi-automatic weapon was recovered. Melly was then charged with 3 counts of aggravated
Did they ever
assault
find the
with a
other
deadly
gun they
weapon
stole?
and 1 count of discharging a firearm in public. Melly would get sentenced to 1 year in youth prison after the shooting. With his first serious criminal charge as a youth, it opens up the possibility of Melly being considered for conduct disorder. Conduct disorder is a mental health condition that involves a consistent pattern of aggressive and disobedient behaviors. Conduct disorder can only exist in kids and teens prior to 18 years old. Antisocial personality disorder, which overlaps with what most people think of as psychopathy, can only be considered if conduct disorder was present by 15 years old. Because Melly was 16 when this happened, it still contributes to the analysis, but it can't be the sole factor. So we have to look beyond this event and see if the behavior was previously present. When diagnosing CD, there are 4 main categories, and at least 3 of them have to be shown within a 12-month period: aggression to people and animals, destruction of property, deceitfulness or theft, and serious violations of rules. Each category has examples which I'll put on the screen, but I'll only point out the ones that Melly clearly shows. In terms of being aggressive to people and animals, Melly shows a couple of examples. Of course, the first one is the shooting we just spoke about. Although conduct disorder must be present by 15, any behaviors at 16 can still be evidence as long as other behaviors were previously shown before that. Regardless of the provocation, taking a gun and firing at people, especially since it was outside of school during the middle of the day where it could have hit anyone, is extremely reckless and aggressive. It was an early, very clear sign of a disregard for other people's safety. Given his obsession with guns, it's possible that this incident let him play out a fantasy he'd been building in his head, and he was looking for an excuse to do so. There's also threatening behavior where he himself admits he brought knives into school and threatened to harm other students with it.
Crazy shit.
I kept bringing knives to school and shit. I around and pulled one out on one of them up. One of them up in the lunchroom.
So you pulled a knife out on someone in school?
There was also a post in July 2015, only 3 months before the actual shooting, where he says, "Whole school getting up tomorrow." This could have been a joke, but if I was armed with the knowledge that Melly carries guns in his lunchbox and that he's potentially depressed and suicidal, and then he posts something like this, I'll think twice before coming into his class. Which is why, in my opinion, it crosses the line from being a dark joke into a genuinely threatening post, especially with the context of him actually carrying guns into school. Next is destruction of property, and the clear proof here is Melly and Juvie setting the woods on fire when they were kids. The fire became so large it required the fire department to deal with it.
We got bored one day and we just set all them woods behind y'all on fire. And this shit was on fire.
In terms of deceitfulness or theft, Melly's entire money-making as a teen relied on having this trait. As mentioned, Melly documents the phone scam he used to run, which involved stealing people's iPhones and selling them on, or while selling it, exchanging the phone for cash, then when they realized it's still iCloud locked, taking the phone back and running. He literally thrived off deceit and theft, and actually seemed to find pleasure in doing so. In terms of serious violations of rules, Melly has a few. Bringing guns and knives into school was breaking the rules without a clear reason, other than for his own desire or sake. He was also truant, as he admits in an interview that he used to bunk school as he didn't feel like it was for him.
So you gradually stopped going to school?
Yeah, I was skipping that and shit. I put up and get some money there. I put up to school.
So you're not going to school at all? You're not eating lunch?
Like high school,
There's also proof of him running away, as he had a Facebook post saying he wanted to run away from home again because that was fun. All of these behaviors occurred during Melly's teenage years, with a high likelihood of one from each category happening within a 12-month period, even outside of Facebook posts or interview proof. Therefore, in my opinion, I'd suggest it was highly likely Melly was suffering with conduct disorder from a young age. It's not clear why, but it can be both genetic and environmental. Melly was raised in Gifford, Florida, which is a poor area, but I still believe his behavior, such as shooting at fellow school students, is caused by more than just poverty and higher crime rates. It can be caused by an unstable home environment, which I feel applies more in Melly's case. Abusive stepfather and a mother who failed to give him enough love to feel worthy, Melly had emotions that were hard to understand or talk about, so he outwardly projected aggressive and deviant behavior, contributing to what looks very much like conduct disorder. That's my opinion, not a diagnosis, but either way, Melly was clearly troubled, and prison was the only place he was bound to end up in during that time. However, during that first stint, a window of opportunity opened up for Melly.
So Murder on My Mind, when did you write that, and what was going on in your head when you wrote it?
The first time I got locked up.
You wrote it while you were in jail?
Yeah.
Melly thought up some lyrics for a song whilst in jail. He hadn't become a rapper on the outside yet, but now all he had was free time. He tapped back into his musical side. Murder on My Mind. I'd prefer to refrain from using song lyrics as an indication to any psychological analysis in this video, as in Melly's case, I do think some songs are just artistic expression and are made up stories versus actual reality, but I think it slightly differs with Murder on My Mind. The lyrics contain the constant repetition of, I got murder on my mind straight after waking up in the morning. He lists the guns he thinks about all day. He gives a vivid description of an experience where he murders someone. Yellow tape around his body, his face is on a t-shirt, his family's traumatized, I reloaded my pistol, cocked it back and shot him twice, he died inside my arms, all on my shirt. This isn't a recount of an event that happened. This is an artistic expression of how Melly is feeling inside. After years of feeling powerless, he feels like he needs to express the opposite, to create a version of himself that is the attacker rather than the victim. But the song was actually good. Melly had a great voice. So in the prison, he received slightly different treatment from your average prisoner.
He used to pay me what, 4 Rice Krispies? I had to start charging that bitch. They kept telling me slide my shit. I was like, nah, bro, I ain't doing that shit no more. You know what I'm saying? Then nigga.
So wait, that was paying you what? Wait, go back.
Same shit, nigga, I'm in jail, nigga, I'm rapping, nigga.
Everyone in jail, including the guards, loved Melly's song, and that helped him get through his sentence with optimism, knowing that when he gets out, he'll be making music that goes viral, and that's exactly what he did. Melly served his 1-year sentence, coming out 15th of October 2016. The very next day, Melly would post a video on Facebook.
You know I love it when I'm next to you, riding through the 772.
A video of him singing the lyrics a cappella to a song he'd later officially released called 772 Love. 5 minutes after posting, YNW Portland commented, going viral. And he was right. Well, kinda. The video would get tens of thousands of views, and a month later, he'd post the official audio of the song. This even caused it to become a little challenge.
Girl, you know I love it when I'm next to you, riding through the 772. The feelings that I got for you is true, so baby, let me cater to you.
This wasn't a violent type of anthem like the one he was singing in prison. It was a lover boy song. And from here, it was obvious that Melly was going to be different from other rappers because of his melodic voice. Over the next few months, he'd work on his sound, and most importantly, his song Murder on My Mind was being perfected, as he was finding the perfect instrumental and even the pace of the song, as before it used to have a slower version, one that he previewed in a car alongside his boys Sack Chaser and Portland.
Cause every time I wake up in the morning, I got murder on my mind. AK-47, Mac 11.
He'd officially released the song in March 2017, dropping the song on both SoundCloud and YouTube. He was able to finally release his dark inner feelings for the world to hear, but the courts didn't take too kindly to the lyrics, and 2 months later, Melly would be set to be taking a trip back to his program after failing a urine sample drugs test.
I had a piss violation, but I kept passing them, so they couldn't use that against me then, because I was on probation. And they just brought up my other one. They brought up my song, Murder on My Mind, in court, and then they sent me back.
He took to Facebook on his 18th birthday to let his new fans know that he'd been missing for a while. I apologize to all my fans. I'll be locked up in a level 6 program for 6 months. I was sentenced on my 18th birthday, May 1st, 2017, due to negative music. Just know I did it for y'all. I'll be back shortly. A level 6 program is a part of Florida's Department of Juvenile Justice for juvenile offenders aged 16 to 19. So Melly would essentially be going back for a second stint after not even being out a year. It must have been frustrating to feel like he'd finally had way out with music, but the opportunity was fading away in front of him for reasons he didn't see fair. For someone who'd, in my opinion, already gone through depression, and as we'd seen, suicidal thoughts, this was another tough stint to endure. He'd announced his actual start date was June 23rd, but 2 days following this announcement, he'd say, "I don't want to die alone," to which Sack Chaser commented that he misses Melly. However, things would take a turn for the best, and Melly's music actually started to blow up whilst he was away. Seemingly, after his music had started getting traction, and Melly started getting clout after his first prison stint, him and his mother rekindled their relationship, and she was now helping further his career. She helped with merch, music videos, and promotion. The 772 Love music video was filmed and posted whilst he was away and got numbers instantly. Then Murder on My Mind grew astronomically and got 2 million streams. This was enough to catch the attention of 100K management. His new manager, 100K Track, said he instantly saw the future potential and helped him drop his first EP in December 2017. It's safe to say that he was experiencing more success whilst away than he did when he was out. In 2018, Track helped sign Melly with 300 Entertainment, the same label that worked with many big names like Young Thug and Migos. And the following month, Melly was back in the streets. He got straight to business and started selling out local shows. And 2018 was really the first time Melly could feel the stardom he was building. And he managed to keep the same friends with him the whole time. Juvie, Sack Chaser, and Portland surrounded Melly in music videos, stood by him in shows, and helped in different ways to build the YNW brand. He'd even get Sack and Juvie's name tatted on his face.
So what you got tattooed on your face? Tell me about it a little bit.
You know, I got Sack Chaser right here, that's my brother and my twin.
Okay.
I got Juvie.
Juvie?
Yeah, brother.
Just a lot of your friends who passed?
Yeah. Nah, them my niggas right there.
Oh, okay.
My brother right there.
My bad. I wouldn't get none of my friends tattooed on my face until they died.
Yeah,
I'm not a good friend like you are, apparently.
Throughout 2018, Melly was growing in different areas. He'd got a new girlfriend, Mariah Hamilton. He'd got a new house.
Alright, y'all, fuck that Florida rap showing off y'all new chain and shit. I got new chain too, but look at my motherfucking house. Look at my motherfucking house, bitch. My motherfucking house, man. Look at my motherfucking house.
And he was making appearances on big platforms like No Jumper and Genius.
So now I'm thinking like, boom, shoot it in the head, and his head just cracked open, and his brain just like.
In August, he dropped his first album, I Am You, which was well received. He spoke about his aspirations to win Grammys and even move into the acting world and win Oscars.
What's the next 5 years looking for you?
Ooh, the next 5 years, I need at least like 3 Grammys.
3 Grammys in 5 years?
2 Oscars.
Okay.
But the same month this interview took place, tragedy would strike. They took my brothers from me over jealousy. I know y'all watching over me. They want to see me break down or stop or in jail or a box. But my guys still need me. Their parents still need me. Their family need me. Till we meet again, my twins, my slimes. This was Melly's post the day after both YNW Juvie and YNW Sack Chaser were shot and killed. YNW Portland would originally tell police that he was driving them home when a car pulled up and shot at them. No mention of Melly. I'm not going to turn this into a full true crime breakdown of the investigation. My focus is the psychology behind what happened. But it's important to understand what's going on for context. Portland's story was a lie. Melly was in the car, as it later be shown on CCTV that after a studio session, they all entered the car together. Portland front left driving, Sack Chaser front right passenger, Juvie back right passenger, and Melly back left passenger. Prosecutors later called ballistics experts who testified that there was no drive-by, that the bullets came from inside the car, from the back left seat, and that the fatal wounds were headshots to both boys. Whether Melly was still in that seat and fired that gun
But how
is
the
not
fuck
proven.
you think you get
However,
two
cell site phone
headshots?
data suggests he was. Melly hasn't
easily
been
at the
found
same
guilty of this
time. It
crime.
makes no
The
sense.
trial is set to January
He got the power.
2027,
Like
so legally he's
by the time
presumed
the first
innocent.
shot would have
I'm going
hurt,
to focus on his
the nigga
behavior
would
and
have moved around,
psychology
put
around
the
this
hand up
period,
and try to, you
and
know.
you can decide for
I don't
yourself
know,
how to
bro.
interpret
It's just,
it. If you want my unfiltered verdict and my theory or motive and an uncensored look at the evidence, check out my Patreon. Over the next 4 months, Melly roamed free as police investigated in the background, and during this time, he got up to some interesting things. When losing your two best friends that you've known since childhood, their remembrance across social media is often present. Especially as a rapper, you'll hear a mention of RIPs in their music, even a
see, I
tribute
only
song.
knew
For
about
example,
R&W
after King
Melly.
Von died, Dirk made numerous
I didn't
references to
find
him
about his
and
boys until
promised
they
to get
died.
revenge on his killers. He kept Von's name alive after his death. This is similar with Meek Mill and his fallen friend Lil Snoop, 21 Savage and his brother Tay-Man, G Herbo and his friend Jacoby. These guys don't run from the mention of their friends' deaths, especially with members like Sack and Juvie who were so close to Melly.
When it comes to travel,
I've watched countless interviews of Melly between Sack and Juvie's murders and Melly's arrest, and not once does he voluntarily bring them up. In a Billboard interview conducted a week before his arrest, the interviewer asks, "I know you lost Sack and Juvie back in October during the shooting. Can you speak on what they meant to you?" It was the first time I saw an interviewer ask the question, but Melly gave a one-sentence answer. "That was crazy. They were my brothers, my day one brothers." The interviewer wanted to press for more and asked, "Were you targeted in that as well?" To which Melly vaguely replied, "Nah, I can't speak on that." In the same month, he had an interview with Power 105.1, and the host asked him to explain the tattoos on his face. As mentioned, from a previous interview with Adam 22 before the murders of Sack and Juvie, Melly revealed he had both of them tatted on his face. Now given an opportunity to explain all his tats, he explains all of them.
Nigga done cut his hair in jail and shit.
So you have a lot of tattoos, face tats at that. Can you talk about them? Explain them. What made you want to get them?
I got one. I think somewhere on here.
Yeah, left side.
That bitch say 90s baby.
Okay.
Then I got the 17 somewhere on my face.
Yeah, 17 right here. What does that represent?
Like at 17, I did some crazy shit. Like I was going through something. Then I got the heart.
What's the heart represent?
Just look cool.
But he never brought them up in interviews and was given an open go here to talk about it, and instead spoke about his other relatively irrelevant tats. He allegedly deleted Instagram pictures of them too.
And when it happened, Melly and Kristen had Instagram pages. He went on his page. They went on his page. Whoever took all the pictures down of Kristen, Anthony.
Damn.
It made it look like they was never existed.
On top of this, Melly attended a music video only hours after losing two of his best friends, where he was happily dancing, trying to liven up a seemingly traumatized baller next to him. Then, according to Juvie's dad, Melly made excuses to miss Juvie's funeral. Melly was seen on an Instagram live with another rapper named Trippie Redd, where he claimed he was on the way.
On the way to the damn funeral. Know how that shit go. Man.
But Juvie's dad said Melly then claimed there was too much traffic, so they turned around.
Speaking of the funeral, Melly was on live with Trippie Redd on the way to this
Damn, his dad was watching like a fucking hawk.
The funeral was originally supposed to be on the 10th of November
that?
at 11 a.m. They pushed it back to 2 p.m. so Melly could make it, and he ended up not showing up. He claimed that it was a traffic jam on 95 North, but I spoke with some people that made it to the funeral that was left South Florida after him, and they made it. Took the same route to get to Vero, same exit, same everything, and they made it to the funeral and everything he did. So we knew that was a red flag, and he was fugazi.
Then, according to Sack Chaser's aunt, for Sack Chaser's funeral, Melly missed the actual funeral part, but only came to the repast afterwards, dancing and handing out t-shirts for 15 minutes before leaving.
He didn't come to the funeral. He came in after, like, when we was sitting down eating. Came in dancing, happy dancing. Didn't show his respects to nobody. I remember that day. He made some shirts for Sack, like rest in peace shirts or whatever. Dropped them off, and they left. He was probably there, like 5-10 minutes. Didn't say nothing to my sister. Didn't come give her a hug. Say, nothing.
But whilst he seemingly forgot his brothers over that 4-month period, there was one person he never failed to mention, repeatedly and repetitively.
I got dye in my head, pretty smile. I always kept that innocent look, you know what I'm saying? Because I didn't want Melly the Menace to be revealed at that time, you know what I'm saying? But the whole time I'm in school, every day, I got my pistol on me in my lunchbox. Sometimes I bring 2 pistols.
I didn't want Melly the Menace to be revealed at that time. This was the first public mention I could find of Melly claiming to have another side of him. He claimed he purposefully presented himself as innocent with dyed hair and a nice smile so that people never suspected he was the kid carrying guns around in his bag. This was before Sack and Juvie's deaths, as they featured in the documentary that this clip is from. But after their deaths, he decided to rename this other side something else.
Melvin, my other person inside, Melvin, that motherfucker, yeah, every day, all day. That's all he be thinking. Some people think about shoes, some people think about weird. They go with the murder on his mind. And I'm like, hey, bro, do you?
He claims that his other side is called Melvin, and he thinks about murder all day, every day. But this mention of Melvin in December 2018 would be his new main attraction for the remainder of his freedom.
Whew. Nah, Melvin. Alright, Melly is loving, genuine, turned up, happy. Michael Jackson. Melly is Michael Jackson. He know how to control his anger in himself. But Melvin, I only let him out at nighttime. Like, when the night hits, he really come. And it's like, Melvin is just like, once you play with Melly to a certain extent, Melvin just don't like that. Melvin on your ass. He been inside of me. Like, he been in, like, mentally, like, inside of me, but I ain't have a name for him, like, when I was in the streets. Till one day, he was just, I looked in the mirror, he was like, Melvin. I was like, what the f***?
Who am I talking to right now? Am I talking to Melly, Melvin, Mel? Like, who am I talking to?
You talking to Melvin, because I'm mad right now. He got, like, a contract going on, like, I guess he get, like, 12 hours, and I get 12 hours. 12 a.m., I can't control it after that. So it's just like, heat up.
Melvin, this other side of Melly, was presented to the public as a genuine condition Melly had. He called it split personality, and the public ate it up, claiming to notice when certain actions were Melly's doing and when others were Melvin's. And of course, Melly fed into this. Typically, when people claim to have this split personality, which isn't a natural clinical term anymore, what they're actually referring to is DID, dissociative identity disorder. Dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder and split personality disorder, is a mental health condition where you have 2 or more separate identities. Now, straight away it seems like, well, there you go, that's what Melly has. However, it's a bit more complex than that. Dissociate means to separate or disconnect. People with dissociative identity disorder may experience several different personalities, usually referred to as alters. Each identity may have different behaviors, memories, thought patterns, or expressions. The identities might even have different ethnicities and ways of interacting with their environments. These personalities control your behavior at different times. Memories may not transfer from one identity to another, which can cause amnesia, which is gaps in your memory. The presence of amnesia is often an important symptom that raises concern for the diagnosis. There are 2 forms of DID. Possession, where identities present as if being an outside being or a spirit to control of your body. You might speak or act differently in a way that's obvious to others. It's an unwanted identity and the personality switch is involuntary. Or non-possession, where identities are less known to others. You might feel a sudden change in your self-identification as if you're watching yourself in a movie, instead of being in control of your speech, emotions, or behaviors. But Melly doesn't really lean into either because he doesn't randomly get possessed by Melvin. He claims Melvin comes out at night or when someone angers him, and he's fully aware of Melvin's thoughts and intentions. The main symptoms of DID include having at least 2 identities that affect your behavior, memories, self-perception, and ways of thinking, amnesia or gaps in memory regarding daily activities, personal information, or traumatic events, and that the different identities affect your ability to function in social situations or at work, home, or school. So from a clinical perspective, he simply doesn't meet the criteria for DID, especially the amnesia and loss of control. I'm not diagnosing him, but I'm confident in saying that this doesn't look like dissociative identity disorder. Melly seems to embrace Melvin. He frames it as if Melly is the light, Melvin is the dark. Melly is jolly and charismatic, friendly, Michael Jackson. Melvin is dark, sinister, thinks about murder. The thing is, Melly has gone through things that would cause DID, including physical abuse, neglect, and depression. However, the way he expresses Melvin just doesn't align for me. My opinion is that Melvin is just Melly's dark side. Think about the guy who, on the outside, is a loving husband, a family man, holds down a good job, but on the side, He's a serial cheater with no remorse for his wife's or kids' feelings. His characteristics while being a family man are going to differ from his promiscuous prowler side. Think Ghost from Power. The reason I think Melly adopted this dark side was because of his home situation. The alleged physical abuse from his stepfather, feeling unloved from his mother, combined with his fascination for guns from age 9, there's a chance he felt inside like he needed to hurt someone, but couldn't hurt his own parents. That was a step too far. But he'd taken knives into school and threatened students. He'd been suicidal himself and had the Bake Act implemented onto him. And at 16, he shot at 3 school classmates who had stolen something from him. He claimed to see demons in his sleep, but I think what he calls demons might reflect him wrestling with the idea of causing harm to others to externalize the rage he feels within. The day before he shot at those boys, the day they took his gun, he put out the Facebook post saying, "So, that once you put your hands on that swivel, ain't no turning back. That beast in me, dog, is too late." That beast he mentions, I believe, is an early reference to what he'd later call Melvin. He feels two sides of himself. One that is a nice kid, but weak and helpless due to suffering abuse, and the other side who is violent and ready to fight back, and it's this one's job to defend Melly. In fact, it may be a case where Melvin is the real Jamel Demons. Melvin is the bullied kid who wants to fight back. Remember how I said that Melly developed a charismatic side of himself to kind of hide the pain back in school? That's what became Melly. Melvin was the real him that felt insecure and bullied and abused and worthless inside. And as a result, that inside version of himself became violent and vengeful. Now he's a celebrity with status and has to portray a certain image. He frames Melly as the version of him that's real. And that Melvin is this side character that is dark and murderous and has these bad intentions. But I really feel like that dark side is the real him that he has to hide from the world, just like he claimed he did back in school times. I think most people have different modes or different versions of themselves. For example, when you're at work, you might be more formal and organized versus when you're at home by yourself. When you're at home, you might have vices or indulge in degeneracy that no one knows about. In my opinion, Melly's other side is just more aggressive and violent than most people due to the mentioned reasons. He just decided to give his two sides a name. In fact, some people believe Melly only came up with Melvin for promotional purposes. In January 2019, Melly would drop a song with his biggest feature to date, Kanye West. This was huge for his brand to be recognized by one of the most successful artists of all time. The song explores the idea of having different or mixed personalities. Kanye himself is publicly known to be living with bipolar disorder, which is a mood disorder, not multiple personalities. So the track plays into that two sides of me theme that fans already associate with him. But the Melvin persona only had increased mentions in the month prior and the month of the release of the song, which makes some believe that this was in fact just something made up to sell the idea of the song. But before this song actually dropped, Melly had to do another quick stint in jail. Back in June 2018, Melly had been arrested for possession of a weapon as a convicted felon and drugs possession after being pulled over. Nothing happened back then, but they decided to arrest him again based on those charges on January 3rd, 2019, for which he'd only have to serve 22 days. After he got out, he thought the next few months were going to be a movie. He had a tour planned around the US, which was starting in New York on February 11th. He would perform what would now become his final show. As before he could perform his next performance in Washington, D.C., he found out the police had a warrant out for his arrest. He handed himself into the main jail of the Broward County Sheriff's Office back in Florida and was charged with the murders of YNW Sack Chaser and YNW Juvie.
If your small business can...
After watching the trial itself, hearing from different witnesses, seeing footage of Melly's own associate snitching in the interrogation, there's a strong case for anyone to have suspicion that Melly did indeed murder two of his supposed best friends in cold blood.
Let me ask you, when you finally got to Bang's house and you saw Melly, was he wearing the same clothes as he left the club in? Did you see where his other clothes
Yeah,
were
that nigga Mickey was tricky. That nigga.
What's your impression? What do you think happened?
Same thing y'all think.
I've seen the crime scene photos. They're graphic. It's an ugly scene.
Yeah, it is.
And to comprehend that a 19-year-old Melly could have done this, seen the bodies lifeless, faked the drive-by, shot them again, and then change clothes and go to a music video the same day is insane.
That's
but not
insanely
impossible.
tough.
Because Melly hasn't yet been found guilty, I can't speak on his complete lack of
I don't
empathy
think
to
he
murder
did,
friends
man.
in
Cause
cold
that's,
blood and show
bruh.
no emotion. However, I can look for signs in his other behavior.
Who knows,
And when we
man?
look at empathy, we tend to look at the big one, antisocial personality disorder, ASPD. In a way, is Melly a psychopath? It's a mental health condition that can affect the way you think and interact with others and lead you to manipulate or deceive people, exploit or take advantage of someone else for your own benefit, disregard the law or rights of other people, and feel no remorse for your actions. The thing is, as I've mentioned, I have to determine this assuming he's not yet guilty of the murders. A one-off event of murder wouldn't make someone a psychopath anyway. As far as we know, it could have been self-defense or someone forcing him to do it. So without
never know.
context, there's no room for diagnosis. There's no simple self-assessment that can determine whether someone has ASPD, as it requires a rigorous
They couldn't
psychological
find the
assessment
other
by a professional.
dudes. So it's
However,
like,
we
bruh.
can use the advised criteria from the DSM-5 to see if Melly's behavior aligns with it, without confirmation of the murders. He must show 3 or more of the following criteria. Failure to conform to social norms concerning lawful behaviors. Melly brought guns to school from age 9. He shot at other students. He brought knives into school and threatened other students. After jail, he failed probation. Then, as an adult, he's been arrested for gun and drug charges. Deceitfulness, which is lying and manipulation. Melly ran the phone scam that relied on manipulating potential buyers for his own gain. And even if not guilty of the murders, he's been deceitful about his involvement, failing to acknowledge he was even there, despite prosecutors presenting evidence that, in their view, places him in the car. Impulsivity and failure to plan ahead. Shooting at those boys outside the school can't have been very thought out, as it was a very public place and he was caught that same day, found hiding in his friend's house. Irritability and aggressiveness. He's guilty of shooting at classmates, threatening people with knives, and having generally aggressive behavior, so he does show this pattern, but I'm not fully convinced it's pervasive enough to tick this criterion with confidence, so I'll leave this one off. Reckless disregard for the safety of self or others. Shooting outside the school with other students around, bringing knives into school and threatening other people, carrying weapons around illegally as an adult, all point to this. Consistent irresponsibility, not proven enough, lack of remorse. Now with this one, there's actually a few examples that, apart from the murders, do show this. When talking about the school shooting incident, he blames the boys for taking his rather than realizing that what he did could have harmed them physically and mentally.
Because I was still trying to find out who the had my shit till one day I found out they had me. And the next day I just went, had to bust at them boys for that.
He also talks about the knives and threatening in a casual, somewhat jokey manner.
Some terrorist type. Yeah, like what the fuck?
He said terrorist.
Yeah, I was crazy. I was crazy. I was about to my next, her next.
After robbing people's phones and making money off it, he flexed the money on social media. And although I won't use it as evidence, if he is guilty of murdering his friends, moments like this make it seem like not only does he not care, but he almost jokes about it.
And I murdered a bee. I am not no human murderer.
Since becoming an adult, Melly has been in and out of jail for short stints on charges related to weapons and drugs. Despite having music fame, he has a tendency for failing to conform to society's rules. Although I can't diagnose him with ASPD, it's for sure clear that he has antisocial traits. He's more than a reckless teenager just misbehaving. ASPD doesn't have a simple root cause. It can be genetic. However, the actual responsible genes have not yet been identified, but it can also be environmental. Someone may be more at risk of developing the condition if they are male, experience trauma or abuse in early childhood, have a lower academic performance compared to their peers, and spent time in jail or prison. Melly has experienced these risks, and he shows traits, so whilst being unable to diagnose, I am willing to say he has traits that align with psychopathic tendencies, which in my opinion could make him capable of killing without normal remorse if he chooses to do so. This is also because he shows callous unemotional traits. Callous unemotional traits are a persistent pattern by a lack of empathy, guilt and remorse, and a disregard for the feelings of others. Melly doesn't just do these crimes for survival, he does it for selfish gain or personal satisfaction, with zero care for how others are affected, making him dangerous to those around him. But the fact he gets seemingly so much satisfaction out of what he does causes me to look at something else.
Parents, if your child plays Roblox, listen.
Causes me to look at something else. When you hear the word sadist, you probably think of serial killers and people who like to torture others. But thinking of sadism only in these extreme terms glosses over the many examples of sadistic tendencies we see and may even exhibit in everyday life, which is why there's a term called everyday sadism. Murdering someone in cold blood or torturing an animal are examples of extreme sadism, but the trait is also at the root of less extreme behavior, leaving a bad YouTube comment and hoping it will hurt their feelings, or smiling inside when you make fun of someone's insecurities. Sadism is defined by the American Psychological Association as getting pleasure from inflicting pain, humiliation, and suffering on others. If we're talking about someone as a full-blown sadist in the extreme sense, that usually means very severe behavior. But everyday sadism is about the same basic enjoyment of others' suffering, just in smaller, more socially acceptable forms, as everyone has a slight bit of sadism within them on a spectrum. Schadenfreude is the pleasure derived by someone from another person's misfortune, like when you watch someone slip and fall and you laugh. It's all a spectrum. So where does this apply to Melly? I first thought of this when I saw a Genius lyric breakdown video where he starts talking excitedly about the idea of shooting someone and then seeing their brains on the floor, and it being described in a way that gives him pleasure.
You know how when an egg crack, and that just like, and then that like all over the road. So now I'm thinking like, boom, shoot it in the head, and his head just crack open, and his brain just like.
So I decided to look back and see if this has shown up before. These more extreme examples of sadistic fantasies. In another Genius interview for Murder on My Mind, he seems fascinated with how guns can take someone's life away from them, lusting at the idea of murder.
If you up that Adam and bust his ass, that's his soul, and like it's death in this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? All I gotta do is up this motherfucker and your ass just you disappear.
To be honest, the whole Murder on My Mind song is one big sadistic fantasy. I think that my opinion would be changed if Melly made the song at the heights of his career, but he made it when he was barely recognized, whilst in prison, and whilst a teenager going through a turbulent time up to this point. And with the context of him being obsessed with guns, playing with the idea of suicide, slight hints at hurting people, even playing out the fantasy by shooting at schoolmates, it wouldn't be a far stretch at all to say he meant the lyrics he was saying. He really does fantasize about murder. But aside from focusing on song lyrics, I wanted to see if there was any indication prior to music. The first indicator of his lust for killing came in 2015, when the tone of his post switched from suicidal to murderous. In July, he posted, "Whole school getting shot up tomorrow." When his previous messages had been suicidal, this seemed more like he had frustration he wanted to displace. He didn't act on it, but in the same month he then posted, "Tired of living, all I think about is death and killing," with a smiley face. He then seems to have started running the phone scams, which, in my opinion, is two-sided. On one hand, he's from an incredibly poor area where you have to find ways to make money, and crime is an avenue you turn to, especially theft. But Melly would flaunt this money over his social media and claim he was making $1,800 a week.
Keep doing it. I mean, like $1,800 a week off this.
There's survival money, and then there's just greed. However, it's not the greed that makes it sadistic. It's that when Melly tells these stories, acknowledging the victims he stole the phones from and the victims he scammed, he says it with pride, like he enjoyed the fact he was able to trick those people and gain from it. Those people gave him money, and their phones got taken. Then, the months prior to the school shooting, Melly started posting guns, and claiming he can't go a day without clutching one. The lines get blurred here because it looks like he has more a fascination about guns themselves rather than the violent act, but I do really believe he wanted to know what it felt like to use it on someone, to inflict that pain, to see the gory settings, but he just wasn't given enough reason to. I'm not going to go all out and call Melly a full-blown sadist, but I would definitely say he has sadistic tendencies that go well beyond the average. He clearly likes the idea of violence and killing, and has flirted with it in real life. But in terms of truly extreme sadistic acts, most of it so far has been in his fantasies and music. I also think the fact he was able to go to a music video shoot mere hours after allegedly killing his friends, or at least by his account, his friends were killed in a drive-by car that he was allegedly in, shows he doesn't have a normal person's reaction to deadly violence. He was happy and dancing, showing no signs of grief. This shows to me that at some point between being born and being 19 years old, Melly had become detached from his emotions. By romanticizing violence the way he does, and by making murder sound beautiful through his melodic music, Melly creates
some niggas I don't know. I'll still be fucked up, but I'll probably be like Melly. But if they're my boys,
admire, or
I don't know, nigga. I'll be like, damn, what the hell?
It's the internal process by which someone switches off their ethical brakes so that they can justify violence or cruelty as acceptable, deserved, exciting, or meaningless. Instead of thinking, this is wrong and I should feel bad, the mind reframes it as, this is normal, this is entertaining, they deserved it, it doesn't matter. In both a legal and general moral sense, Murder is by definition never justified. The term murder specifically refers to the unlawful, unjustified, and often premeditated killing of a human being. However, somewhere along the way, Melly started to see murder as exciting, smiling whilst he refers to it in his lyrics.
You disappeared, bitch.
Melly used to be a victim, and in an attempt to get back power, he became the villain who loves dishing out the violence, rather than the little boy receiving it. That's why in the months following the deaths of his best friends, he struggled to even pretend to care. His morals and emotions are too far gone. If he did kill those boys, the combination of antisocial traits, sadistic tendencies, and moral disengagement would fit with someone who could detach emotionally from the act, possibly even take a kind of satisfaction in it, whether premeditated or in the heat of the moment. I hope that one day we do find the truth behind the murders of Sak and Juvie, not just if Melly did it, but if so, then why? The truth is, we may never actually know.
Free that nigga Melly, man. Shout out to Jay Wilson, he killed that.
Alright, we back. So it's sad, you know what I'm saying, sometimes to see like, you know, how people's lives and misfortunes can make a success story turn into a fucking nightmare. You know what I'm saying? Because we all get put in situations, you know, where, you know, our actions define our life. And the only person who could change that is God. You dig what I'm saying? Yahweh. But sometimes people can be so fucking in their mind and stuck on the stuff that they got in they misfortunes that it can turn real bad, man. So I just hope YW Melly get free. This is a good video. I mean, I just been chilling outside, big crippin' gang outside shit, man.
Hey, Dad, you know, dog, when we link up, dog, this shit be legendary. You know this instrumental, you the engineer on it, so Kodak everywhere.